Alrighty, let's go. Welcome back into the Skooshi Sport Podcast. Here to give you my live reaction to Team List Tuesday for round 7. Hard to believe we're literally at round 7 already, but here to give you my live reaction to the team list that have just come out this afternoon. Not expecting massive surprises, I don't think. I know of a couple injuries like your Dylan Lucas and that sort of thing. But before we get into it, make sure you give the video a massive like and subscribe to the channel. Nearly at 200 subscribers, which you absolutely love to see. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much for supporting and listening every single week. All right, let's get straight into it, baby. Let's rip the band-aid off. Let's waste no time. Thursday night football, Cowboys and the Seagulls here. I'm just going to reduce my size a little bit there. All right, Cowboys and the Seagulls from Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Always starting with the Cowboys. At fullback, Scotty Drinkwater. On the wings, we have Braden Burns and Zach Labour. I do believe Murray Tellingen got injured against the Broncos on the weekend. In your centres, Jackson Purdue, Tommy Chester. In your halves, Jake Clifford and Tommy Dearden. Up front, Cohen Hess and Jason Tambololo. At hooker, we've got Sonny Luke for a concussed Reed Marnie. I think it's just a Cat 1. He should be back the week after. On your edges, Helium Lukey and Kai O'Donnell. And then at lock, Ruben Cotter. On your bench, Sam McIntyre, Griffin Neem, Thomas McKaylee, Matt Lodge, Viliame Vailea. Good to see him there. And Mason Barber. Okay. So they've decided to go. They've still got a forward bench, but bit of X factor there if needed as well. For the Sea Eagles, Tommy Turbo at the back. On the wings, Jason Saab and Lehigh Hopawate, Tolata Kola and Ruben Garrick in the centers. Luke Brooks and Fogarty in the halves. You got Paseka and Hetherington up front. Brendan Wakeham still starting there at hooker. On your edges, Ola Kawatu and Burbo, and then Jake Trorojevic there at lock. On your bench, Jake Simpkin, Corey Waddell, Ethan Bullymore, Takiaho, Nathan Brown, and Clayton Falola. Yeah, pretty unchanged there for Manly in that one then. Pretty unchanged for Cowboys apart from Zach Labour starting on the wing for Murray Talangi. It was the opposite last week, so Brandon Burns is back, which is good to see. Going to be an interesting game, that one. I would pick there's going to be a lot of points in that one there. This game is very interesting. Raiders and the Storm from Canberra, Friday, 6 p.m. This is almost a must-win game for both teams here, which I never thought I'd be saying this early into the season. Very interested to see how the Storm line up after getting their ass kicked last week. For the Raiders, though, at the fullback, we've got Kay Wicks. On the wings, we've got Seb, Chris, and Jed Stewart. Hello. This is interesting changes here. So, no sign of Tamale. Is that dropping or an injury? I'm not quite sure. In your centers, Simi Sasangi and Matt Timoko makes his debut for the Raiders. Not debut, but first game of the year for Matty Timoko this year. And then we got Jed Stewart, Ricky Son on the other wing. Ethan Strange and Ethan Sanders there in the halves. Up front, Josh Papali and Joe Tarpany. Tommy Starling starting there hooker. On your edges, Hudson Young and Noah Martin. Now, interesting to see Noah Martin is starting there. He did get a late benching last week for Zach Hosking, but he's gone back to Noah Martin starting this week. Corey Horsburgh starting there at lock. On your bench, Jaden Brayley, Zach Hosking, Adam Mariota, Morgan Smithies, Dane Laurie, and Joe Roddy. Okay, I like the fact that Matt Timoko is back. I think he's just a superb center. He's a New Zealand center, right? I think it's very, very good to have him back. Few little backline changes, which I'm not sure about Tamale if he's injured or just suspended. I'll have to actually find that out. I do know he either walked it in for that try last week or he got injured. I'm not quite sure. For the Storm, Suafalaga at the back. On your wings, we've got Will Warbrick and White Terry. In your centers, Jack Howarth and Nick Meaney. In the centers, so no signs of Moses Leo. That looks like he has been dropped, I would say. On your halves, Cam Munster and Jerome Hughes. Up front, Stefano Uto-Okamani and Josh King. Hook up, we've got Harry Grant. On your edges, Joe Chan is back. Good to see after he got hooked after 45 minutes last week. And Cooper Clark starts on the left edge, which is another good sign for the Storm. Still no sign of Lasati yet. I believe he'll probably be back next week. Trent Leary there at lock. On your bench, Tyron Wisher, Alec McDonald, Jack Hetherington, Davy Mwale, Sean Blaw is there. Very interesting signs for the Storm. Sean Blaw is there on the bench, and then Hugo Peel there as well. So Surprises? Look, Moses Leah probably hasn't been up to standard for the Storm so far to start the year. I think they do need to make a change there. I'm happy to see Joe Chan get a chance. Like, probably a lot of people think he's going to get dropped after getting hooked last week, but good to see him get another chance there, see if he can bounce back. That's always what you want to see from a sort of a good player like Joe Chan, is for him to get his chance to bounce back. And I really like Cooper Clark. Really do like Cooper Clark, so I'm happy starting in. And interesting to see how they use Sean Bloor, especially with Lasati back next week. Very intrigued how it looks with like Cooper Clark, Sean Bloor, Joe Chan there as well. I'd say Cooper Clark goes back into a middle role, but you still got McDonald and you still got Hetherington there. So I'm still very interested to see how that all lines up. But big game for both teams. Friday night, Dolphins and the Panthers from Darwin here. For the Dolphins, hammer at the back here. We got Asako and Selwyn Cobbo there on the wings, with Avarillo and Herbie Farnworth in the centers. In your halves, Cody Nikarima and Izzy Katoa. Starting up front, we got Tommy Gilbert and Felice Kafusi. At hooker, we've got Maxi Plath. On your edges, Connie Lemuelu and Fine Fuiaki there on the right. Yeah, and Morgan Knowles at lock. On your bench, Brad Steiner, Tom Flegler, Ray Stone, Francis Molo, Oren Keeley, and then Trey Fuller. So pretty unchanged team, I believe, there for the Dolphins. I think Kurt Donahue is out. Looks like potentially Brad Schneider is coming in for Kurt Donahue there. For the Panthers, all right, we got Dylan Edwards at the back, Tommy Jenkins on fire at the moment, and Bizza on the wings. Paul Alamotti, and coming in for the suspended Casey McLean is Isaac Tungo. Good to see him get a shot there. And your halves, Blaze Talangi, Nathan Cleary. Up front, Leota and Lindsay Smith. Mitch Kenny at 9. IPAP and Luke Garner there on the edges. And then Isaiah Yo at lock. We've got Jack Cogger, Scott Sorensen, Kalani Going, Billy Phillips, Sione Fanua, and Freddie Lussick there on the bench. Yeah, pretty unchanged. Obviously, just the main change I had to do was Casey McLean in for Isaac Tungo. No sign of Liam Martin. I do believe he is carrying an injury. I think he's going to be out a few weeks as well. So I'm not sure if he's going to be in danger of Origin or not. But yeah, just wanted to monitor with Liam Martin. But Casey McLean is back next week. I believe he'll be back next week. All right, Warriors and the Titans. 3 p.m. from Go Media Stadium for the Warriors. Now, I have heard potentially Tanner Boyd might be out in this game. Did hear he's in doubt. Very intrigued to see how we line up, though. Tane Tuapiki at the back. On the wings, DWZ and AKP. In your centers, RTS and Ali Leia-Tower. Okay, unchanged so far. You love to see it. In your halves, Sunil Harris, Tavita, and Tanner Boyd. Okay, Tanner Boyd has been named. Thank goodness. So far, unchanged. Good signs. In your starting up front, Fisher Harris and Jackson Ford. Wade Egan there, hooker. Leka Halasima and Kurt Capewell is back. Let's fucking go. And Aaron Clark there at lock. And then on the bench, Sam Healy, Naria Kore, Valmunga, Jacob Laban, Luke Hansen, and Iramir Toyava. Luke Hansen is there on the bench. It does make me a little bit worried. A tiny bit worried that they maybe think, obviously, Tanner Boyd may not get through, may not get to the game, and he may get injured, obviously, during the game. Luke Hansen looks like the guy that will step into that role, which I really don't mind. It's like, I don't mind whatsoever. You got Mitchie Barnett and C&K there in your reserves. I'm interested at C&K because I know he passed his HIA. I think he's got a neck injury. And then Mitch Barnett on the reserve. I wonder if he comes in for... Fuck, I don't even know who he comes in for. It's just hard to drop one. Like, a Nia Koro is awesome. Via Munga, you can't drop him. Maybe Laban, but even then, very interested, because you can't keep Laban off for like the whole 18, right? Or whole 19. Very, very interested, but I'm very happy that the starting back five has stayed the same. But like Tower deserves another shot. I think RTS in the centers was awesome. Why would you change last week? That was awesome, right? That went down to Melbourne and won by 24 points. Very interested. I hope we just fucking pray we do not get complacent. For the Titans, Keanu Keeney at the back there, coming off a best game last week. On the wings, Fire Money and Philip Summy. In your centers, Jojo Fafita and AJ Bremson. In your halves, Lockie Ilias and Jaden Campbell. Up front, Curtis Morin is back, I believe. I think he was injured. And Tino Fa'asul Malawi, Sammy Verrills a hooker, Aaron Mahal and Bo Fermel on the edges, and Chris Randall there at lock. Cleese Haas was out last week, my bad. On your bench, Ollie Pascoe, Cooper Bai, Mo Fodawaker, Adam Christensen, Jalen DeGroot, and Zane Harrison. Cleese Haas is there on the reserve, so is Josh Paxton. I think I heard that something that Cleese Haas may be back this week. I'm not sure though. All right, Rabbitohs and the Dragons here. Charity Shield revenge game for the Dragons from 5:30 from Accor. Heard the rumors this week. Matt Duffy is fullback. They're not putting Latrell there. They're putting Matt Duffy. They've had to get approval. Looks like it's gone through. No Jai Gray, obviously, for Souths in this one here. So Matt Duffy at fullback. Good to see how he goes against his former side. AJ and Campbell Graham there on the wings. Latrell Mitchell and Jackie White in the centres. Cody Walker, Jamie Humphries there in the halves. We've got Tavita Totola and Keon Kolomatangi there up front. Brandon Smith there, hooker. Lockie Hubner and Tallis Duncan there in the edges. No signs of David Fafita. He is out. I wonder if he's carrying an injury. List surely not fucking. He played 80 minutes last week. What's happened now? Okay, Lockie Hubner starting there on the edge. Cam Murray there at lock. On the bench, Mama Zelas, Bronson Garlick, Sean Kepi, Jaden Sullivan, and Ed Cossey and Tom Fletcher there. Okay, so no sign of Fafita. He's completely out of the squad. He must be injured, right? He must be carrying something. Interesting. That's the only sort of big surprise. Obviously, Matt Duffy there as well. I think Matt Duffy would be okay. I think he'll be okay. He's got a bit of motivation against his former team as well. First game in the NRL in a very, very long time. All right. For the Dragons, Tyrell Sloan remains at fullback. On your wings, we've got Tua Palotti and Setu 2, who was awesome last week. In your centres, Matt Fine and Val Holmes, and no signs of Moses Sulu. He did go off with an injury last week. In your halves, doesn't matter what number these guys play, apparently. Dan Atkinson at 6, so Carl Flanagan at 7. In your props, Emre Gula and Toby Catchman. We've got Damien Cook starting their hooker. On your edges, we've got Luciano Leilua and Jaden Sewer, and then Hamish Stewart there at lock. On your bench, Jacob Little, Blake Laurie, Jacob Halangahu, Josh Kerr, Hames Selly, and Cade Reed is there as well. So your reserves, you've got LKT, Pacifici Tonga, and David Farley. Not too many massive surprise. I think that's pretty unchanged apart from Matt Thine in for Moses Sully, but I think apart from that, unchanged. Can the Dragons go 0-7 or will they get their first win of the season? Very, very interesting. And obviously no David Fafita for the South, which I did not actually see coming. Saturday night, this is going to be a cracker. Broncos very depleted. Tigers running hot. 7:30 from Campbelltown for the Tigers. Dream Buller at the back. We have got on your wing, Sania Taruva and Makasini on the wing. Makasini on the wing, baby. Let's go. Taylor May, Yam is back in the centres. Patrick Herbert there as well. Very deserved to keep his spot. Probably unlucky for a guy like a Gerald Skelton, who was pretty bad last week, or Luke Laulili. Jerome Luai, captain, makes his way back in for the Tigers. Adam Dewey there, halfback. Terrell May and Fanua Bolly there up front. Apikosa at 9. Samuel Afanu, KPP on the edges. Alex Twal there at lock. On your bench, we've got Jock Madden, Sione Fanu, Royce Hunt, Alex Seyfarth, Latu Fanu, and there is Luke Laulili there. Bunty Fella there in the reserves, but good to see, obviously, Jerome Luai's back, and good to see Yam back, and good to see Makasini on the wing. Now, I've heard Patrick Herbert, he obviously played right centre last week. I've heard he's played left centre in New South Wales Cup. And going by round 1, probably looks like Taylor May will be on the right. Although what we saw in pre-season was Taylor May on the left, and we're used to seeing him on the left. So I'm very intrigued to see. I don't really care about the numbers and team lists these days. I'm just intrigued to see who is actually left and right centre for the Tigers. All right, for the depleted Broncos, Jesse Arsis remains at fullback. Karapani and Dean Mariner on the wing. Stags at centre and Shibasaki. Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds has been named. Now, he was ruled out last week. He was named and ruled out. Interesting to see if that will happen again this week. But he is much needed, although I did not think Tom Duffy was all that bad last week at all. Up front, Corey Jensen and Payne Haas have named Josh Rogers at hooker. Holy dooly. Interesting to see how that goes. He's generally a half. On your edges, Brendan Piakura and Jordan Ricky. Now, I have heard Jordan Ricky did get an ankle injury at training. I'm not sure if he's in doubt or not, or they think he's going to be okay. Xavier Willison is at lock, replacing the suspended Carrigan for 2 matches. On your bench, you've got Tom Duffy, Ben Tolte, Jaden Hunt, Jack Krzyzewski makes his return via Semu, and Hayes Perham is there. So they have got Cam Bukowski there in the reserve and Corey Pakes. I'm very intrigued to see. I think they're seeking approval for Corey Pakes to deter the 11-day stand down to see if he comes in. Just interesting. I haven't heard anything yet. Just interested to see if that actually ends up happening for the Broncos. Should be an absolute cracking match, this one. Tigers should be expected to win, but against the reigning premiers is never going to be easy. Very intrigued to see if Adam Reynolds actually ends up getting named. All right, Sunday afternoon footy should be an absolute crack. I think the Roosters are going to win really well in this game. 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon from Allianz. For the Roosters, Teddy at the back, Tupou Nawangani Tawase on the wing, Fluffies, Hugo Savala, and Robbie Toya there in the centres. We got DC, Sammy Walker in the halves, Naf White, Lindsay Collins up front, Reece Robson at hooker, Angus Cryer and Siwa Wong there on the edge, and Victor Radley is there at lock. And on the bench, Connor Watson, Spencer Lenny, Nat Butcher, Selassie Fiketti, Cody Ramsey, and Tommy Taylor. Pretty unchanged team. You got Billy Smith there in the reserve. I'm not sure what's happening with Billy Smith. I really actually liked Hugo Savala, if I'm being honest, in the centres last week, but pretty unchanged so far for the Roosters there. Now, for the depleted Knights, Fletcher Sharp is at fullback. That is a scary fucking prospect for the Roosters, honestly. Very scary. On your wings, Dom Young against his former side and Greg Marzou. In the centres, you got Dan Gagai and Fletcher Hunt. So they've just put Fletcher Hunt in the centres because Wilson DeCourcy, shame, massive shame, but he was very much awful last week. In your half, Sandon Smith and Dylan Brown makes his return there. So I actually do like that change. The fact they can still have Smith, Brown, and Sharp there in their spine. And Crossland, very similar to how they looked in round 1, kinda. Jacob Saifidi and Trey Mooney up front. Finish Crossland there at 9. Thomas Kant in for the injured Dylan Lucas, who was back in about 4 to 6 weeks from a throat injury. Jermaine McEwen there on the right. Matt Croker there at lock. On your bench, Harrison Graham, Pasami Solo, Cody Hopwood, Francis Malalalua, Carl McCarthy, and Peter Holler. You got Tyson Gamble there in the reserves lurking. I don't think he'll come in, but I actually really like these changes for the Knights. I think Fletcher Sharp at fullback provides a lot of spark for the attack. I think Fletcher Hunt can do a job there in the centres potentially. Sandon Smith and Dylan Brown, I think that's a good halves combination to have there. You got Sandon Smith, who's a good game manager if needed. Dylan Brown, obviously, is Dylan Brown. And then I like Thomas Kant there on the left for Dylan Lucas. So they're a bit depleted, but I think they've made the right changes to actually suit up against the Roosters here. All right, final game of the week. Eels and the Doggies here. Eels coming off a 42-point bashing against the Gold Coast Bulldogs, coming off a win against the Panthers. These two teams are opposite ends of the spectrum in regards to their matches last week. Eels obviously very depleted, but fullback Josh Papali'i. On your wings, Brian Kelly and Josh Adokar. On your centres, Will Penasini and Sean Russell. So no Anzo, I think it was Anzo Tavana was there last week, so straight back out for him. In your halves, Ronnie Volkman and Mitch Moses. In your forwards, we've got Luca Moretti and Junior Barlow. Riley Smith there, a hooker. On your edges, Charlie Geimer and Jack Williams. So completely, instead of going Jack Williams up front, they've gone with Charlie Geimer with Jack Williams instead of Kiniana Katoga and Kelma Tuolangi there on the edge. Dylan Walker there at lock. You got Talon De Silva, Saxon Pryke, who I've never heard of, Jack DeBellin, Tony Mataale, Tiankim Brown, and there he is, Araz Navdet there on the bench for the Eels. Look, they're very, 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 very banged up, unfortunately, at the moment. Eels, it's just very unfortunate for them. But interesting to see how they go, especially after last week's effort. For the Doggies, Connor Tracy at fullback. You got on the wings, Jacob Carraz and Marcelo Matoya. In the centres, Anari Tawala and Bronson Sherry. Anya Haas, Matty Burton, Lockie Galvin. Up front, Sam Hughes and Leo Thompson is debuting his club debut for the Doggies back off that injury in the preseason. Bailey Hayward there at number 9. On your edges, William Kikau and Jacob Preston. James Salmon there at lock. On your bench, Kurt Mann, Satili Tupino, Harry Hayes, Jake Turpin, Johnson Sewer, and Lipoi Hopoi. What I will say, on your reserve, you have got Josh Curran, you have got Stephen Crichton there on your reserves. Now, I did hear a whisper he was going to be named. Not sure whether starting or reserves. He's in the reserves. Sounds like it's going to be an absolute miracle if he plays, right? He's only been out 1 week from an AC joint. Apparently, he heals really fast, but I had heard it would be an absolute miracle if he did play. So, not expect him to come in. Just, I would be shocked if he did come in. I think they'll be happy to stick with Tawala and Sherry for this game in the centers. I think they can win this game still without Crichton in this one here. They obviously don't want to get carried away, but I do think they can still win this one without Crichton. Just give him another week and then bring him back more healthier next week against the Broncos, which is a huge game. I think it's on Thursday as well. Alrighty, guys, there's your Team List Tuesday reaction. A couple surprises, right? We've got Matt Duffy is there, a couple droppings for the Storm. We've got, what do we got? Obviously, a couple surprises for the Broncos as well. We've got Fletcher Sharp there at fullback. Good to see. Very good to see. The Warriors have not made a change. I'm very happy with that, despite C&K is back, that sort of thing. I love to see it. Why would you change last week, which worked so bloody well? But let me know in the comments what you thought of this Team List Tuesday here. That'll do it for me, guys. Trade Room will be out tomorrow morning for you. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and cheers.